time once again for another random review with Brandon, the host of the Bloody Scream podcast. This week, I have chosen just 2 movies this time. No comics, no video games, but 2 movies. For those of you new to the random review format, I pick 2 random things out of either my collection or something I rent them, whatever, and I just review them. Doesn't matter how old or how new. So if you'd like to discuss any of the stuff I review, put it in our forums and or email us at bloodyscreampodcast at gmail.com. Yeah. Alright, the first movie is, it's kind of an old movie. It's kind of, as in kind of an old movie, I mean it's, it was 2005 this thing was made, so, a little bit old. But anyways, it's A History of Violence. Oh, wow. You might have heard me mention this on the Movie Thing podcast, but let me get into depth about this movie. So this movie takes place in little suburb America. I would like to say a southern little town, where Viggo Mortensen, aka Tom Stahl, he plays his, small town dad with, a wife, 2 kids. Pretty boring. If the whole movie was just that, it would be boring as hell. But then these 2 burglars come in and they're gonna rob his little shop establishment, as were, that he has. And they were about to rape one of his employees, and then he, ends up killing both of them. And eventually, he becomes a big hero. The town's blown out of proportion. The news blown out of proportion. Then Ed Harris's character comes into play. Ed Harris's character is, he's Fogarty. He's this, he's this gangsta from Philly, he even has that accent, when he's talking like this, except for, Ed Harris does a much better job than I do, I tell you that for sure. But, he either mistakens him, or Tom Stahl actually is Joey Cusack. And so, it's kind of it's sort of a mystery at first of like, is he Joey Cusack? Is he just Tom Stahl and mistaken? They don't really, for a majority of the film, it's kind of, they're trying to make this mystery of, is it him? Is it who? They don't really try too hard. This is based off a graphic novel. Also, I think titled History of Violence. Never read it, heard it was fantastic. This movie is pretty good. I have a few flaws with the ending. I don't believe the ending is as powerful as, say, the mid. Because, I guess let's just say the ending climax is just really kind of meh, in my opinion. I'm just like, really? This is how you chose to end this movie? I really would have picked a different ending. Honestly, I think the ending would have been better if they just cut out maybe in the end of the second act. The third act really just blows, in my opinion. We got some powerful actors in this movie. Viggo Mortensen plays Tom Stahl, and he's the main character. Viggo Mortensen, if I have one character flaw with Viggo, he's quiet. He's too fucking quiet sometimes, where he talks like this a lot of the time, doesn't really add too much emotion. This role, I like to say, he adds more emotion than most, where, the Lord of the Rings, he's still pretty quiet for the most part. You occasionally hear him go, ah! But for the most part, he's still pretty quiet. Eastern Promises, he does kind of a quiet Russian accent. This one, you actually hear him raise his voice, but he's still quiet, Viggo. Viggo's fine. You got Ed Harris, like I said, playing Carl Fogarty, the basically main antagonist of the whole movie. He does a fantastic job where, you can actually see him. He's really intimidating, but overall in the range of, actually, violent, I guess you could say, him and his crew fall really flat on their knees, but, what else were they supposed to do? You got his wife, Maria Bello, who is, her character name is Eddie Stahl, but, Maria Bello, she's been in a few movies. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but she's alright. The rest of his family's fine. You got William Hurt, He plays a part in the movie, not till the very end. I'm amazed they got an actor like William Hurt to play the end, but you know, yeah, I won't. For those of you who haven't seen it, I'll try not to spoil it for you. You know, History of Violence. This is a David Cronenberg film. You know, people who don't know David Cronenberg's work, he made, well, another Vigo movie, Eastern Promises, which I own and think is a great movie. He also made The Fly, one of the, I want to say the remake of the old Fly, but the Fly that everyone really knows. He made that one, and to my shame, never seen it. Maybe one day. But I think he did a really good job, and him and Vigo do pretty good work. So I enjoyed this movie. I think it has some problems. It's really I have people disagree with me, and they think it's one of the best movies ever. But like Nikki G, he'll disagree with me. But I really just think it fails in the third act. I'm gonna give this, because it's not a bad movie, I'm gonna give it 3 out of 5 stars. It could be better, but it's not the movie I would have made. I know that's saying a whole hell of a lot, but And time for a movie is Push by the novel by No, I'm kidding. No, it's Push, the Chris Evans movie, from 2009. It's a much earlier movie. This movie, I was a huge defender of this when it first came out. I was thinking, oh, you got Chris Evans, this up and coming actor. You got, Maureen Drew Ballard, that dude. I could not pronounce his name to save my life. As the villain, you got, Dakota Fanning finally playing, a more mature role. You got, well, those are the big ones. Well, Push, for people who have not seen it, is this world where a bunch of psychics live in. It's kind of an X-Men-esque world, except for, if the government still controlled most of the psychics, and then they were capturing these psychics to test them and try to push their limits, which usually ends up killing them. And so far they have had no successes except for a girl named Kira Hudson. She survived the test, and she's become really powerful. She can make people do whatever they want, because each psychic has their own ability. You have some that are just telekinetic, some that can see the future, some that can scream real loud. I don't really know how that's psychic, but you got some that can look at you and say, or I guess no, those are the ones that can tell you what to do. Sorry, my memory's a little shit. You got some that can. Oh, smell. That was the one I was missing. The smelling ones. Some of these ones are way cooler than others, like the ones be able to tell people what to do or the telekinesis. But the ones that, or even the scene in the future one's cool enough. But, I can scream real loud, or I can smell you and see what you were doing on that object, which is a horrible thing. So you got those type of classes, and they explain them all, but, and you got, you have Chris Evans, he plays as Nick. And, he's this low life who's just kind of hiding out. The government really doesn't want anything to do with him, so they're just like, leave him alone. And you got this, the villain, Henry Carver, who's looking for his ex-girlfriend. And the whole movie kind of turns into this whole thing where they're just, we gotta protect her, we gotta create this, like, weird Ocean's 11 scheme trying to just make sure that the government can't find her, and then it's just, it's this really convoluted story towards the end. It's just like, what the fuck? Oh, Jesus Christ. But it all kind of ties together, and it kind of has it's not a great movie in any imagination. Like, the writing is fine. I enjoyed the writing, enjoyed the lines, enjoyed the actors, enjoyed the characters. The plot is where it lost me. I'm just like, the plot really isn't that, it's not a deep plot in any stretch of the imagination at all. And what makes me laugh is they actually have all these, the government has all these psychics working with them. All the villains are basically psychics. And the whole time I'm thinking, oh, Jesus, really? You guys are selling out your own kind. That'd be like in the X-Men universe, how they're, the mutants start working with the humans to, experiment on mutants, which technically there was, the whole, what's his face, drawing a blank on that villain. There is an X-Men villain that he is a mutant and he does experiment on mutants. So, man, that's kind of the thing they're going with. They have that going with them. So, yeah. Otherwise, I do have to say, I did dig the, three-way battle they have going on here, where they had the government versus the main group of characters of, Dakota Fanning, Chris Evans, and Camille Bell. She was in for people who don't know who I'm talking about, she was in the, Hellboy. She was the main chick in Hellboy. I mean, that's the only movie I recognize her from. So you got the government versus those three versus the Chinese triad, which I thought that was just I thought that three-way battle, it really has a kick-ass third act and a really good first act when you're just getting introduced in this universe. It's really the second act of the movie, which is the longest act and not the this one is in my opinion, the second act is the one that's supposed to keep you interested. The first act's supposed to get you interested. The second act's supposed to keep you, and then the third act's supposed to blow you away. And I really thought the second act just didn't really do its job of keeping you interested in the story. And that's where this movie has its biggest flaw. Otherwise, it's not a bad movie in any stretch of the imagination. The director of this nice little film is Paul McGunnan. He's actually making that new Frankenstein movie that'll come out next year, or 2 years from now, I guess. Yeah, wow, that's really far. I thought it would be way sooner. But yeah, he's directing a Frankenstein movie. I don't know if it's the other Frankenstein, but he's made such things as he's directed many episodes of the hit show Sherlock. So yeah, he's made also one of my personal favorites, Lucky Number 11. People may have their problems with that movie. I fucking love it. And the way this movie is directed, it is a lot like Lucky Number 11, where it's just like, oh, here's how our elaborate plan all fell into place now. It has that type of story, and I'm just like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I really dig that. The writer, the writer is David Borla. Let me just say, he really hasn't done shit. Yeah, he's, this is literally the only thing he's done. He's written this movie, and honestly, I could say that Paul McGunnan really had the biggest hand in this. He probably even changed the script of this guy. I really want to believe that the biggest flaw in this movie is the script. The actors, however, Chris Evans does a great job. He's kind of he's the reluctant hero. We could all enjoy the reluctant hero. And that's literally what he is. You got him. You got Deminge Husson. That was the guy I was just making fun of his name because he has the fucking weird ass name. You recognize him from the supporting actor in Gladiator is one of his famous roles, and another supporting actor of what was it, Blood Diamond, which he has an amazing job in that movie. Deminge Husson, he plays the main villain, and his whole power, he can convince people to do things, just saying like, hey, you can shoot yourself right now, and people are just like, okay, I'll shoot myself. He, as that power is, you can see how he's in charge, but him as an overall character, you're just like, dude, fuck off. A guy with telekinesis could just kick your ass, just like, not gonna look, just push you away, boom. Dakota Fanning really annoyed my dick off. She was annoying in this film. She really, really, really was. She plays like this loudmouth teenager, and she was at that age at this time. And granted, now she's in her 20s, but at the time she was like, she was this preteen, and they had her playing the most annoying character she could, and it really kind of got my nerves towards the end. And last, Camilla Bella, I cannot pronounce her name. Kira Hudson is what she plays. She plays Nick's ex-girlfriend, the girl that's everyone's trying to get after. She's alright, she's a little less depressing than she was in Hellboy, but overall, just bleh. And she can, honestly, they could have taken her, she could have been palette swapped for anybody. So really, with only two actors that were actually decent, only one that I actually could agree with, and that was Chris Evans, who I could see why this movie does not have a sequel to it. They didn't really end it acting like they were going to have a sequel, but they could have definitely made one, and I'm glad they didn't. I don't hate this movie. I was, when I was really enjoying this movie, I was on a big, I was big on Chris Evans crush thing, man crush going on there, where I was just like, I gotta watch all his films. It was right after, actually, it was right after The Losers is when I actually got around to finally seeing this movie. And that was, that was about a year after it was originally released. This movie, it's still, it's an interesting watch. If you got a bored, lazy, Sunday afternoon, you couldn't go wrong with this. I'm gonna give this, this one, I say you can't go wrong with it, but it's still, I can't give it a high rating because it does drop the ball on many points. So I'm gonna give this a 2.5 stars out of 5. Just below a 3. I can't really, if you see it on TV, I'd say give it a shot, but do not spend any money on this. That is the best thing I can give. So, that was everything. That was my 2 movies, 2 random reviews. Episode 2, or issue number 2, I should say. If you would like to discuss any of these things, just do what I said in the beginning. I will get back to you as quickly as I can. I would love to talk to you about either one of these movies, and we can have a long discussion about whether you agree with my rating or disagree, and if you want me to actually explain what I'd hated about any of these actual movies, because I do have to avoid spoilers for people who may not have seen these old movies, because I'm a big guy on spoilers. So, that is everybody. Thank you. Good night.